Community Motors West Side, the GM Superstore next to Cinema West. Community Motors of Mason City, we give you more.
This time I'm going to open up Sarasota County Board of Supervisors regular meeting. First two items on the agenda is the agenda and the minutes from the regular session on January 10th and the special session on January 10th.
Okay, but, this time I would make a motion to approve today's agenda or accept it and accept and approve the minutes of the past regular meeting and the special session.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion second to approve the agenda and the minutes from the January 10th regular session and special session. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Any old business?
And no, sir.
Moving on to new business. County engineer. Mary.
I don't have a whole lot to report on. It's snowing, but the guys are not out yet. It's blowing across the roads and not really accumulating yet. So they're not quite out yet. So we'll see how the rest of the day goes. And then that's about it for them. The second item I have on the agenda for your consideration is a resolution to authorize the chair to sign final pay vouchers. Quite often we may do a federal aid project or a farm to market project, and those projects are led through the DOT Office of Contracts, and they administer the finance part of it, and it's paid through our farm to market fund. They require that the chairperson, the chairman or the chairperson signs that final pay voucher. So sometimes those final pay vouchers get close to the interest date, so we like to get them processed in a timely manner. So the resolution is just to allow or authorize the chair to sign it.
Mr. Chairman, at this time I move resolution 2012 number 17, approve the pay voucher.
Okay, and I'll second resolution number 17 for the pay voucher.
Okay, we got a motion second to do pay voucher for odds and ends things.
Pretty much farm to market and federal aid projects.
I know when you talked to me the other day about that. Anyway, that's resolution 2012 number 17. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Anything else, Mary?
That's all I have.
Okay.
I guess I have one other. The North Iowa Snow Seekers, I think 5 or 10 years ago maybe, they had trails that crossed our roads, and every year they move these trails. They don't notify our office, and every year my sign foreman says, do you want me to pull those signs or what do you want us to do with them? And I've left them about 4 messages and they don't contact me back. So I may just write them a letter that says if they don't contact me back, we're going to pull the signs, because they're not where the crossings are now. They're a picture of a snowmobile to warn motorists that snowmobiles are crossing there, but they're not. So they're essentially useless where they're at.
Do you know who's in charge of that?
Rob Ketchpool is the president, and David McCoy is the vice president, and I've called them both twice and left messages, and neither one has called me back.
Okay.
So my next step was to maybe send North Iowa Snow Seekers a letter formally in writing and see if I can get somewhere.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. You have anything for Mary, guys?
I do not.
Okay. We'll move on. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
We'll move on to the county auditor's business. Claims.
Got the claims here, along with some claims on top that need the Board of Supervisors signature.
Okay.
Motion to approve the claims and authorize the chair's signature where appropriate.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion second to approve the claims and authorize the chair's signature where appropriate. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Payroll.
I have one payroll item, and it's for Amanda Palmater. the sheriff's department. She's a new employee, so that payroll change for her needs to be approved by resolution.
Volunteer. I don't know how you put that.
She's replacing someone who resigned in dispatch.
Okay.
A resolution.
Yes.
I'd, so move in favor of accepting the payroll using resolution number 2012, number 18.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion to do resolution 2012, number 18 for a new employee, Amanda Palmetier, is what I'm going to call. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Drainage.
And no drainage business.
Okay. Moving on to item number 4 is authorize the chair to sign contract with Aerial Services for the 2012 project. I'm going to turn it over to you, Ken.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. This is the, it's been 10 years since our initial GIS project. The county invested $750,000 at that time to raise the level of our mapping services to a digital level, in other words, GIS. That was a good investment for a lot of reasons. The county has tremendous powers to do things that we could never have done before. We have savings in a lot of areas as a result of that initial project. Our plan was to have another flyover, a countywide flyover, basically every 10 years, and then consider a low flight in addition to that in certain areas. The GIS committee has been meeting for the past several months. You've already approved 2 contracts with regard to the 2012 project. Actually 3 contracts, and bringing you the final contract for that, and then the second agenda item is the 2080 agreement with the City of Mason City. The bids came in amazingly low. We anticipated an investment of $120,000 to $150,000 for new countywide aerial photography and an area basically comprising about 30 square miles that include the City of Mason City for a low flight in addition. The bids came in. We were well pleased with the pricing. I think things seem to be competitive in that market. I think the technology is definitely improved from 10 years ago, so we're seeing a lot of savings as a result. The upshot is that we're proposing a contract with ASI, Aerial Services, Inc., out of Waterloo. They are who did our flyover 10 years ago. They were the low bidder, which was not the requirement of the committee. It was an RFP process. Pricing was one aspect, but we were pleased with all aspects of ASI's proposal. In fact, they exceeded our specifications. We asked for a high flight of 4,800 feet, and they quoted us that, but they also quoted us an alternative at 4,000 feet. Now, to compare 10 years ago, our high flight was 12,000 feet, so that's 3 times as high as what we're bringing to you today. The closer you get to the ground, the more pixels, the more digital rectification of processing, so there's more cost involved the lower you get. But our high flight countywide would be 4,000 feet above ground. The low flight area, initially we were looking at about 30 square miles that included the City of Mason City. We had such a good price for the low flight that we extended that west to include Clear Lake and Ventura all the way to the county line. So that is our proposal. That flight will be at 2,000 feet, and we had asked for bids at 2,400 square feet, or 2,400 feet above the ground. So ASI exceeded that with one of their alternative proposals. The cost, it's just a win-win all across the board. The cost for the ASI contract that I'm bringing you today is $90,350. If you add in the additional costs that you've already approved contracts, it's in the neighborhood of $101,000 and change. That's less than half the cost from 10 years ago for that same work. And again, to compare, we're getting a lot more detail in both the high and the low flights. We're covering more area of the low flights as well. So that's the contract. Now, we had our consultant, Dan Corbin, review the ASI contract. He just got back to us late last night, in fact, and with some modifications. I've taken those to Aerial Services, talked to the president of Aerial Services this morning. He's going to make those changes. So my request for you is to approve the contract with ASI, subject to the revisions as reviewed by Dan Corbin. And you have all that documentation.
Is there any questions for Ken?
One that he won't know, where did those 10 years go? I mean, where did they go? I can distinctly remember, we went for, you know, and in March of '02, we flew.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
Yeah, but
Well, he has been done most of them, hasn't he? No. Is there any other questions for
Bob?
Ken?
Mac?
Sure.
So does the city share in that cost, or is that just the counties?
that's the second agenda item. The,
Okay, sorry.
No, and I'll cover that as well. if you
Go ahead.
want. For the past 6 years, we have cooperated with the city of Mason City in the form of the 2080, Chapter 2080 of the Iowa Code, which is an intergovernmental agreement between the city and the county. The purpose is for GIS data sharing, sharing of services. The county purchased the GIS system countywide, and we have made it available to other cities. But the city of Mason City is the most technologically advanced, I think, is fair to say. And the proximity with the county makes it easy for them to connect. So we allow connection to our actual GIS database, and then they can add layers and CR layers as well. No other cities at this point have that direct connection, but we would certainly be interested and open to partnering with the other cities as well. The basic agreement calls for a per parcel cost. I don't remember the rate, but it's $7,500 is what the city of Mason City would have to pay per year to have that direct hookup, and we would have similar fees for other cities. But in each of the last two contracts that we've entered into with the city of Mason City, we've had some sort of a GIS project at that same time, and they have contributed toward the project because they benefit. In fact, the entire concept of GIS is that we benefit from the sharing of the data, and the digital format makes that possible. In any case, we have twice entered into 3-year 2080 agreements with the city of Mason City. This is the renewal time for that agreement. In each case, we waive those $7,500 per year contract fees, and they contributed toward the project. So their contribution this year, they have it on their agenda tonight, is to kick in $30,000 of that $101,000 cost. In addition to that, County Assessor John Bodecker just informed me yesterday that he has money in his budget of $11,000, and he wants to contribute that as well. So this is just a very happy win-win situation all across the board.
Okay.
When you're able to take those, update those aerial photos, we have gas lines, water lines, sewers, pipelines, overlays for economic development, roads, bridges. You know, it's a great tool to have, and it can be used in so many different aspects of public work. It's a great opportunity, for us to have something really that's state of the art. Although we've had something I think has been very good in the past. Tom, do you have any comments on that?
I think the enhancements that this project gives us for our existing system will make it even more robust than it is today, especially having the lower flights throughout the county at the 4,000 feet. That's a tremendous enhancement over what we've had in the past. And then also having the 2,000-foot flight from the eastern city limits of Mason City all the way over to the Hancock County line are tremendously valuable from an economic development perspective, as you said, but it's valuable to realtors, engineers, private property owners within those areas. I know I provide the aerials to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Board of Adjustment, when cases come up. I believe my counterparts at the city do the same. They're extremely helpful in providing an accurate picture to those commissions when they have a matter under consideration.
Yeah, just think how often we refer to them even up here.
Yes.
During specific planning and zoning issues where we have aerials. So, and the quality is very good too.
Mm-hmm.
So was Kevin's picture last week considered a 12,000 feet picture? 12,000 foot picture?
Kevin,
Keelings?
I would imagine it's 12.
No, that was from the previous low flight. It was just outside Mason city limits. And that was from a 2009 flyover as part of a contract with the pictometry, I believe. And boy, I don't know what the height
I'm
of
just
that
curious.
was.
Can't
I don't recall what it was, but
It was good.
yeah.
Yeah, they were good pictures.
Well, these should be even better, I would say.
And the ones you take are good too, though.
From the ground. Sometimes they're
And you're
dogs.
standing on the ground.
Yeah.
Okay, is there any more discussion? I think we'll start with number 4 first, the sign the contract for the aerial services.
And again, I would ask this be subject to the inclusion of revisions as
Okay.
recommended by the Inco.
You bet.
I like that motion.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, we got a motion and second to do number 4, sign the contract with the provisions that Dan Corbett has made. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Authorize the chair to sign the 2080 agreement with Mason City for GIS data sharing.
Okay, and I so move to authorize the chair to sign this agreement.
Second.
We got a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Ken.
Jesse Wilson of the city has said that the 2080 agreement will be on the city's consent agenda for this evening, so he doesn't expect any controversy or any issues.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you.
John, will you report back to us and then see if we can?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Ken.
Thank you.
Moving on to item C, County Treasurer. Motion to suspend assessment of year 2010 tax pursuant to section 427.9 for Sharon Crawford, 907 Rock Street, Plymouth. Peg, do you have something with it?
I do. The treasurer's office has looked at this, and she does meet the poverty level for 2010 and probably 2012, so we're requesting a tax suspension
Okay.
for Sharon.
Motion to approve the suspension.
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, we got a motion second to approve the suspension for Sharon Crawford. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Item number 2. You want to,
We have a number of parcels under the Fish and Wildlife with the government, and we'd ask that the board consider to abate the taxes for these parcels that have drainage, because really the federal government will not pay them.
we go through this just about every time we have an
Right.
assessment.
Every year it happens.
Every year it happens, and I talked to Ken yesterday, and I talked to Pat yesterday, and they both said they'd like to keep doing it the way they are, so we keep a good, accurate record of where we're at on all this.
And I think you guys have a list.
We have the list.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve items A through R, totaling $419, drainage assessment abatements for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife.
Okay,
Okay, I'll second that.
okay, we got a motion second to approve the abatement of the drainage assessments from A through R in today's agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Now we have item number 3. I presume this is the same thing,
Yes,
all U.S. of America?
yep, exactly.
Okay, and this is for $683, and these are all the drainage assessments.
Mr. Chairman, another motion on item 3, letters A through J, for $683.
Okay?
Okay, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Peg.
You got it.
Moving on to item D, County Assessor's recommendation for family farm credit.
I can speak to that.
Okay.
Every year about this time, we get the recommendations for the family farm credit from both the city and county assessor. The city has just one, the county has several, whether to add the credit to the parcel or remove it. Our office will take care of the paperwork or applying that to the parcels, but we would seek board approval of those recommendations before we do that.
Okay?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the county assessor's recommendations for family farm credit and the city assessor's recommendation for farm credit.
Okay?
All right, I'll second that.
Okay, we've got a motion and second to approve the recommendations for the county assessor's family farm credit and the city assessor's family farm credit. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carried. Item F, agreements and contracts. Authorize the chair to sign a retail order for business systems for Sarah County DHS photocopier purchase. Okay, it's DHS, it's for $7,995.
Mr. Chairman, I think there's a maintenance agreement too
Yeah.
that tags right along with that.
Yep.
Okay. I move to approve items 1 and 2, the purchase of the photocopier for DHS and the maintenance agreement with business systems.
Okay,
All right, I'll second that.
okay, we got a motion and second to do the authorized chair to sign the retail order and the maintenance agreement. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, opposed, motion carried. Appointments,
I'm done.
correspondence and communications.
Okay, I'll, if I may, I can take the lead on this.
You sure can.
Okay, I have been appointed and sit on the 2nd Judicial District Board, which is made up of 22 counties. I'll just say North Central, but Dodd Foss is the executive director, and Mark Hendricks is the guy in the boots on the ground here locally. Would that be safe to say or right to say it? Okay. So they're going to have a presentation of
Yeah, would it be easier? Can
Sure,
we just kind of move
whatever you
up
prefer.
to this table? Mark Hendrickson is here. He'll help answer some questions just locally about Cerro Gordo County and the services we have here. As Phil said, we are probation and parole in the state of Iowa. We're community corrections, and Iowa is very unique nationally in that we answer, my boss is a board of directors by Iowa Code 905. In most states that's not true. Usually probation and parole serves under the Department of Corrections head, which is John Baldwin, the prison's head in Iowa. Here, in this, which would have been John Baldwin if we were organized that way. Here in Iowa we're very different because we have a board of directors that hires and fires me, the director. They approve budgets and contracts and that kind of thing. As Phil said, there are 22 counties in the 2nd Judicial District, eight districts in Iowa. The board consists of one member from each of those counties, one Board of Supervisors member from each of the 22 counties, plus there are 4 advisory committee delegates and 4 judicially appointed delegates that the Chief Judge Kurt Wilkie appoints. So we have a 30-person board. It's the biggest in Iowa. So when we sit down together, I sit down with all 30 of my bosses and we talk about issues and budget and that kind of thing. We're going around because we found out a lot of our communities really don't know much about who we are, that we're even there. And so we're pretty proud of how we're organized. We have 4 big field offices, and that's going to change now because we're transitioning a little bit to change our geography. But right now, our 4 big offices are in Fort Dodge, Ames, Marshalltown, and here in Mason City. Mark is the field director up here. He has by far the largest catchment area, And this district has 9 counties worth of officers and staff that he supervises that are providing these services to you. I'm gonna, you want a couple of these? If you look at some, I'll just hand a couple of these out. Kind of see, if you look at the map on there, on the front, that little dark blue area on top is the catchment area that the Mason City office is in charge of. Every day in community corrections here in Iowa, people are kind of surprised. We see 30,000 people are on community corrections in Iowa on any given day. We see over 60,000 people are supervised in the state of Iowa per year. That sort of dwarfs the prison population, is about 8,600 a day, so you can see the difference. Here in 2nd Judicial District, we have about 3,400 active offenders under our supervision every day, and then during the year, we about double that, about turns over. So we see over 6,000 offenders just here in the 2nd Judicial District each year. So we always tell people a lot of your neighbors and friends probably have family members that they know that are involved somewhere in the probation and parole system. And some of our services are listed there. Mark, do you want to just talk a little bit about your office, like how many offenders about you have and staff?
The field office is located here in Mason City, and we're in Mohawk Square. We supervise Saragordo County and the 8 surrounding counties. So we go Winnebago, Worth, Mitchell, Floyd, and Hancock, and Franklin, Butler, and Bremer. Stands to reason that Saragordo County is our largest county in terms of business and the number of cases that we have, followed up by Bremer County. So those the top 2 counties that kind of feed our caseload. On any given day, we're providing services out of the Mason City office to about 1,200 or so offenders. It's down some, which is good. We used to average right around 1,300 for several years, which is just about a third.
You're about a third of the
district. Third of the district's caseload is supervised out of Mason City. I currently have 13 full-time probation parole officers, and then 2 community treatment coordinators who help provide assessments and treatment groups and work with the prisons in terms of transitioning offenders back out to our communities. 95 to 97% of offenders that go to prison come back to our communities. So we really do the bulk of the work in supervision within our communities. We provide pre-sentence investigations, which are required by the code on all felony convictions and can be ordered on aggravated and misdemeanor convictions. The only felony conviction that we don't do a pre-sentence investigation on is an A felony, and that's those folks that go to prison for the rest of their lives. So, in addition to that, we also do pretrial supervision. That's a status where the court, somebody's been arrested, they're still innocent until proven guilty, but the court is allowing them to come out to the community with some supervision to make sure that they're showing up for court hearings and those types of things. And then we also provide probation and parole supervision. Probation is the vast majority of the work that we do. And that's somebody that's been convicted of a crime. They receive a suspended sentence depending on what crime class that they have, and they are given community supervision with that sentence being suspended. Now, if they successfully complete all the conditions of court and we place on them, we'll recommend discharge, and they'll discharge their sentence without the suspended portion being in place. If they violate conditions, then we notify the court. There's a potential what is called a probation revocation, and they go back basically to the sentencing court, and a decision is made based on the types of violations or kind of their behavior on probation to determine if their probation should be revoked or if they should receive contempt, those types of things. So there's a whole kind of menu of sanctions that's available. Parole is essentially somebody who's been convicted of a crime and they are sentenced to prison. They go and do their time in prison, get recommended for parole by the Board of Parole, and then they come out to us and we supervise them, much like we do probation cases, but their status is parole. In until the discharge date.
We're pretty proud of the outcomes in Iowa. If we can get someone through probation, if we can get them to complete, only 10% are re-involved in the system again, so about 90% make it if we can get them through probation. That's the hard part, if we can get them that far. The recidivism rate for parolees is about double, that's about 20%. Prisoners, it's more like 36%. So by far, we're a good public safety investment if we can keep them in the community for a long period of time. We also have 4 residential centers, one in each of those cities we talked about, and the one right here is the B.G. Clark Center. Leah Knoll couldn't be here today, but she's the residential manager of that center. That's a 51-bed center for both men and women. What's the address out here? I don't know what the address is. The post box is on there, but not the So, any questions about that, about who we are, and we just usually we get.
I was just going to ask a question. How's Phil been doing since he's been out?
How's who been doing?
Phil. How's he doing since
he's been. How are you? You're holding up, right? They come into these meetings. He's learning a lot about high-risk populations and sex offenders and drug treatment and all the kinds of people that that we take care of. So, anything you want to bring up, Phil?
I've been on this board for 10 years, and it's kind of evolved in the sense that they're continually looking at, Mark, there's things you said in there, they're just in place, and they go these chain of events, but they're looking at getting home to the community and peer pressure on the other way. You get them back to their family, their homes, jobs. Jobs is a big thing, and but they do get that peer support at home. And before it was like, we'll get them out of that environment. Maybe that environment made them the way they were, but we're starting to think the other way, is to get them back.
When we can, there's still. You know what your mom used to tell you when you were growing up, who you hang around with has a lot to do with how much trouble you're going to get in. Well, that's a real primary risk factor for offenders too. It's who they associate with. So there is a lot of research talking about interrelationships and strong family relationships, but we have to be real careful about the family though. I mean, a good, strong, supportive family is a good thing. A family that are bad associates isn't. You want to chime in on that, Mark? So it just sort of depends on the case.
Right. I mean, the companions, obviously, the friends and associates, but unfortunately, we work with offenders whose family is their companions and their family. It's a multi-generational issue, so it really, we try to take a look at case by case, but. The most effective way to work with offenders, as long as they're not hurting people, and as long as they are, complying with, the basic important conditions and our conditions, the best place to work with these folks is within our community, for the reasons that you've mentioned, family support and jobs and local treatment. Because you remove an offender from the community and put them in, behind the prison walls, they can behave in a very structured setting one way, but when they come back to their neighborhood and their hometown and seeing the people that they used to run around with, whatever skills that they've learned in prison but weren't really able to practice kind of fall apart. So one of the advantages of working with offenders in the community, and I want to stress, as long as they're not hurting people, we really want to work with them in the community, because that's how they strengthen the skill sets that they're learning to change their behavior. So we really try to just break it down, per offender, per case, and what their needs are. So.
And you're right, we are starting, especially families who have sex offenders or someone like that in the family. We are working with families so they can help us help them more, like they'll know signals when the person's doing at-risk behavior, and some of them even alert our officers for help at that point. So you're right, Phil, we're learning to use all the resources we have. That's what Mark is saying, and piece together a real individual case plan. So I was gonna, Phil's seen this before too. This is this is the same sheet of paper we're handing legislators this year from community corrections too. And I'm only gonna talk about the first one on there, and then we'll answer any more questions. There's some new research here in Iowa that first bullet refers to. They did this research. We're kind of proud of it because it's the only research we know of in the whole country that actually relates just caseload size, number of people on someone's caseload. They did it right in Polk County, so it's Iowa research. And they found out that for even high-risk people, if we can keep them on caseloads of 30 or under, just watching caseload size, they didn't pay any attention to what kind of treatment we gave them or programs or anything else, but if we keep them on those small caseloads, recidivism rate drops by 45%. Can you believe it? And these are with high-risk people. So one of our goals is to try to shift our resources in this district so that Mark has the resources he needs for his high-risk people first. So even if we have to do different things with other kinds of people, we want to make sure we're completely supervising those high-risk people because those are the ones most likely to reoffend and to reoffend more seriously than other people. So that's one of the messages we're bringing to legislators is we need enough officers on the street to handle those caseloads and keep them small enough so they can do the kind of work that we know how to do.
What's the typical caseload now?
That question is, what are your caseloads like now?
Much higher than that, unfortunately. Yeah, we do try to keep our high-risk caseloads as close to 30 as we can, but we're above it. And then we have another layer, kind of our medium risk offenders. And that's really where our caseloads are way too high. We're averaging probably between 90 and 110 in that neighborhood. And then we have a lower risk caseload that we feel more comfortable being higher because of the research supports our approach to that. But we do, we need to reduce our caseload sizes.
That same research, Mark's talking about his high medium, those are supposed to be at 50 to 1. They got the best results, and Mark's way over that for the medium risk ones. But
how is the governor's budget respective your present situation?
The state government's budget. We're mostly state funded. We have appropriations. Actually, that's our relationship with the Department of Corrections, by the way, money folks.
What is the governor's position on your present program?
He actually, for this year, there's 8 districts. We're one of 3 that's probably going to get close to even by the end of this fiscal year, so we're getting no help this year. The governor's recommendation actually is all we've seen so far and actually gives us a little more money for next fiscal year 13 to restore some of the critical positions. So we actually are getting a little more funding this year than we had the last couple. So the thing that's the issue here, and you'll see it on the sheet, is that when the state of Iowa does, does the salary adjustments, the wage increases for organized labor and the insurance goes up and all that, and that's what we got to make sure they fund, because otherwise that's a big cut in our budget. And you understand that because you watch all the costs go up as salaries go up, so which is good, overall good if we can get money for it. So.
It's
anything else go?
You've got to be moving along here, but
yeah.
In a cost-effective manner, we must realize that for whatever reason, the antisocial behavior, there's some people belong in prison, but for very effective, efficient, we have a good bang for your buck. Literally, some of these people in prison, yearly, you could send them to an Ivy League school. I mean, it costs that much, but this is really to get them home and be supervised, and they're to try to get better. I guess for back like a better words than that, but you know what I mean. It's I've seen it all in graphs and that, and this is the way to go for some people.
Well, and a lot of states are shifting now because the research is so good on community corrections. They didn't maybe pay quite as much attention just because it was the right thing to do. Now they're short budgets, so they can't afford the prison system. So some of that shift, you hear some of that discussion down at Capitol too. If that's what you're talking about. People know Iowa can't afford any more prisons. So I think they'll attest for some solutions like that. So that's who we are, and we have Mark right here in town.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming in. You guys have any questions? Okay. We appreciate the participation this morning. I think the last item on our agenda is adjournment.
I'll second it.
Motion second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Yep.